But Fitz, let's start with you. Which player kind of stands out to you as maybe being too high, too low, or you're not quite sure?
So it's Jonathan Taylor I want to talk about sneaking into the end of the first round. And I find it kind of interesting that he is ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs in the expert consensus rankings. It seems like in ADP, most of the time I see Gibbs ahead of Jonathan Taylor. And maybe this changes too in full point PPR rather than half point, where Gibbs might gain a little bit of value over Taylor. I'm personally good with it, though. I have Taylor ranked ahead of Gibbs in half point PPR. After the top 5 running backs, McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, I do think the position gets pretty dicey in a hurry, so I don't mind grabbing a running back if I'm sitting on the turn. Starting with a guy like Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams plus one of those 5 running backs. Not a bad way to start your draft. So injuries cost Taylor 7 games last year, 6 games in 2022, but they were relatively minor injuries, not like chronic soft tissue injuries, no torn knee ligaments, anything like that. And the last time we got a full season from JT, 2021, 1,800 rushing yards, 20 touchdowns, more than 2,100 yards from scrimmage. It was pretty glorious. Now Taylor is going to get paired with Anthony Richardson, a dangerous rushing threat in his own right. And I just keep thinking back to the rookie year we saw from Robert Griffin III in Washington in 2012, I believe it was, where he had 815 rushing yards and 7 touchdown runs in 15 games. And Washington's lead running back at the time was Alfred Morris, a 6th-round rookie with 4.67 speed. And in RG3's sensational rookie year, Alfred Morris ran for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns. And the threat that he posed, that RG3 posed on RPOs, run-pass option plays, sent Alfred Morris's rushing efficiency through the roof. And I am now just getting like starry-eyed thinking of what it could be like with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. Think about it. If you're a linebacker and you see Anthony Richardson sticking the ball into Taylor's breadbasket, but you don't know whether he's actually handing off or if he's going to pull the ball out and run, scoot around end himself, that's definitely going to make those linebackers hesitate and give Jonathan Taylor a split second extra to get through a hole. So I can't wait to see what this is going to look like this year. And I think if we get a full season of good health for Jonathan Taylor, no one is going to regret taking him on the 1-2 turn.
You were right about that. The ADP, in the rankings, it's Taylor 12 and then Gibbs is 13. He leads off our next round. In ADP, it's switched. Gibbs is 12 overall and Taylor is 13. Yeah, that RG3 season is always the one that's like such a great comparison in terms of just seeing in action the extra efficiency you're going to get from the running backs. I was interning for a sports radio station in DC that season, and it was just like we talked about it every day. Essentially, we had a. It was an afternoon show, and it was RG 3 o'clock every afternoon. Is we would always talk about RG3.
It was such a fun offense to watch that year.
It really was.
Yeah, Washington was must-see TV.
It was a surprise, and it was exciting, and it was fun. It was unique. It was really cool experience. Basically ever since then, every time we talk about a running back with a mobile quarterback, the question that I always feel like I'm asking, and I'll ask it again here because it's a new scenario, a different offense than some of the other ones we've asked about it before, is are you more excited about kind of the added efficiency you would expect from Taylor, or more pessimistic about the fact that Richardson will likely take a lot of those rushing touchdowns?
Yeah, some rushing touchdowns. I don't think JT is duplicating the 20 touchdowns he had in 2021. But for the added rushing efficiency, Alfred Morris, 13 touchdowns in 2012. If we get 13 touchdowns from Jonathan Taylor, along with 2,000 yards from scrimmage, I think everyone will be fine with whatever touchdowns Richardson poaches from JT.
Jonathan Taylor, D-Bro, what are you kind of evaluating him this season? This is somebody who just 2 years ago was going in the first round of Superflex startup dynasty drafts. He was the one running back that everybody was trying to get a part of. Has it just been injuries the last couple of years? Is there any reason to think that he's 25 now? Are you shying away at all? Are you pretty happy to invest in Taylor as well?
I'm hand holding with Pat here. So I'm with on JT. Like, I've got JT as my 12th overall player. I have him above Jahmyr Gibbs. He is my RB5 in ranks. It's only him and Saquon Barkley alone by themselves in tier 2. And so I'm not worried about Anthony Richardson poaching touchdowns. I'm not worried about, Anthony Richardson taking off, and there's not going to be a lot of pass game volume. If JT runs like we think he's already done previously in his career, and he does that again this year, the touchdowns and the rushing volume alone will be enough to carry him to a high-end RB1 season alone. And we haven't even talked about the context of the offense. Like, this is not going to be a top 10 passing rate offense. And we can also marry that what we saw down the back half of the season. They are going to run at a fast pace. So if we're talking about there's going to be a lot of play volume, it's not all getting funneled to the passing game, then it's going to have to go to the run game. So JT is going to eat. I'm not backing off of that because, come on, guys, like we've seen year after year after year, injuries are fluky. Injuries can happen, or maybe they don't happen. So I'm not willing to label anybody as being, they're injury prone, because that's the most divisive thing. And where there's uncertainty, I'm just going to dive in, because if JT stays healthy, yeah, he's locked in. He's a high-end RB1.
I'm glad he mentioned the faster pace too. I didn't even mention that, the Shane Steichen dividend.
Mm-hmm.
I think ranking him around 12th or so is fair in terms of how you line it up. I think I'll be considering drafting him as high as 9. To me personally, there's kind of a really clear top 8, which lines up, maybe in a different order, but it lines up with the top 8 in consensus. Once you get to 9, like I feel like you could pretty easily justify, depending on how you want to build your team and who you expect to get in the second round, you could justify Taylor ahead of Puka, ahead of Garrett Wilson, ahead of AJ Brown even. Like I think you could really make a case for him as high as 9. Because again, if he's healthy, like he's going to.
I don't disagree.
There's
I don't disagree at all.
You're saying, just to be clear, behind CMC, Bijan, Breece Hall, and then the top 4 receivers: CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase,
and then Amon-Ra is kind of the one.
Amon-Ra, okay,
the 8th guy in that group. And I would hear the argument for Taylor above Amon-Ra. I would prefer the Sun God, but yeah, that would be the 8. Is those 3 running backs? I'm not putting anybody ahead of them at the position, and then obviously the elite receivers. But after that, I'm really happy if I'm in the back half of the first round picking 9 or 10. I think I'm going to take a lot of Jonathan Taylor.
I think one guy we're not going to talk too much about in this spot. I think Saquon Barkley is also in that same conversation. I think that with him and JT, depending on what you think of that offense, he's in that same type of conversation where he should get all the freaking work. Yes, there's worries about the rushing quarterback, but again, drawing the parallels, they're going to run at a high pace and stuff. We're going to see a good offense with Kellen Moore at the controls. I think Barkley and JT, for me, are hand-holding, and both of them, the conversation starts for them in 9th overall.
Fitz mentioned kind of like when you're actually picking in the back of the first round. I think if I'm picking 12th in leagues, I will be doing a lot of double dipping at running back, some combination of Taylor, Gibbs, and Barkley. I think I'll be doing a lot of.